Welcome back, everybody. This is the Artificial Intelligence live stream. Today, I am joined by a really awesome guest, second-time guest, actually, although not originally in the live format. But my name is Jon Radoff. I'm the CEO of a company called Beamable. We make infrastructure for games to be online. And I'm accompanied by Oscar, our producer, who's been helping to keep this thing on track for episode after episode. Kris Kashtanova was on my YouTube channel, I think about 3 years ago. And we talked at the time because Kris is famous for having filed the very first copyright of an AI assisted work. And there was all kinds of news about generative AI and whether you could copyright it or not. There were no guidelines at the time. And that was the context that I got to know Kris in. Now, since then, the whole market has evolved a ton. The Copyright Office has some new guidelines now that, as I understand it, are actually based on some of these early interactions that the Copyright Office had with Kris. We'll be able to talk about that. But allow me to take a moment here just to introduce Kris to you. Kris, welcome to the program. Why don't you give an introduction of yourself and where you've come from, where you're going, and then we'll dive right in, starting from that work that we were just referring to and how things have changed over the last 2 or 3 years.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Last time when I talked to Jon, I just remember how inspiring was that conversation, even though it wasn't live and there were no other people on stage. I just remember the way I felt. And now I see all of you. I see Andrew. Hi, Andrew. It's so cool to see you. Okay, live is so much better. Hi, Piotr. I know all of you. You probably all know me, so I didn't really need the introduction. I just make stuff with AI, and I just love doing creative stuff with AI and also learning from the community and doing stuff together and interacting together. And I like creativity of all sorts. Before AI, I was doing pretty much everything I could get my hands on, like claymations, photography, sculptures made out of garbage, all kinds of stuff. And then when I discovered generative AI, it was so new to me, and it was also so not so good as it is now. You couldn't really make such amazing things as we can do now, but I felt something. I thought, oh, there's something in it. So I started creating, and then shortly after, a few of you actually told me to share. And at first I was really hesitant, but then I started sharing, and the community grew, and I met all of you, and I met Jon. And yes, and here I am. I just want to share all the ways I created with AI in these 3 years since Jon and I talked last time. And hopefully, maybe you will either try AI or try something interesting, and also like maybe mix up my ideas. And yeah, I would love to keep this conversation going. So as this is live, you can all jump in and we can just talk.
Kris, I love it. You're doing my job, inviting the audience to participate. So the exact thing I was going to point at. So there's a reason we do this as a live program. We could do it as a YouTube video. That's exactly what Kris and I did. I think it was 3 years ago, and it would be pre-recorded, and then we'd go through editing, and there'd be all this post-production, and we post it, and people could watch it. We've switched to completely live, and the reason is you, the audience, get to participate that way. It's an opportunity for you to ask all the questions that you're really curious about. Kris is just an expert on creative technologies and using generative AI in particular towards that, as Kris was talking about. She was an artist long before generative AI became an influence on her career. So we do want you to come in and ask questions, because you're not going to have as many opportunities as this to get FaceTime really with Kris and ask about her journey as an artist, as someone who uses generative AI, and also just what she's discovered about these technologies and how they've changed over the last few years. We've already got a couple hundred live viewers, so that's awesome. 5 minutes into the program, I suspect this is going to be super popular with our audience. So again, you're here, you're live, ask questions. And by the way, if you want, you could even come on camera too. So if you want to join in the discussion, Oscar will shoot you a StreamYard link. We can make that happen. That's happened maybe a quarter of the time, maybe. So
I want to see everyone on camera. That was my expectation, that this will look like a Microsoft Team or a Zoom call and we all just talk. But it's okay. If you feel shy, please feel free to just put your questions into the chat. And meanwhile, I would love to share, like I took some of the videos I made in this few years, and I just want to share with you some kind of journey that I was on since the beginning. And John probably remembers first one slide. I know that he will be excited to see that because he's on that slide as well. So this was, if I remember correctly, August 2022. I made my first comic book, Zarya of the Dawn, and it's probably one of the most famous things that I've done in my life, which I didn't expect. I was just experimenting and playing and sharing my process very openly. I shared every single day what I was making on my Facebook page, actually. So I had just friends and family commenting on that. I did have X account back then, Twitter. I was not using it at all. I maybe had like 100 followers, and I never thought about it because you also couldn't write long text back then and you couldn't post long videos, so it never occurred to me to actually share there. And then I remember I posted my comic book on Reddit, and that's when it went viral, and that's probably how a lot of people discovered me. And then finally I joined X and I started sharing all my stuff there. There's a few pages that are in the comic book. It was translated into 33 languages. People just wanted to participate. The story was extremely simple. It's actually only one paragraph from a novel that I wrote a few years before, and I just tried to visualize like a small part of it. And because AI was so limited, I couldn't really visualize the entire novel. It would take forever. I remember like one page would take me a whole day to get the right images, to like, there was no generative fill back then. Like I had to use like Clone and other tools. It took forever to do it. But I was so happy with it because I felt like, you know, you can tell stories. You can tell your stories, your old stories, something you've done before, but now you could use some visual things. Before that, I actually also tried to do that. I used self-portraits that I'll show you later, that I used to kind of visualize my novel. But this was it. I remember how this page with postcard, it took so long, and still I just had to kind of frame it because she just didn't want to hold it. You would see all the hands wrapped around, and if you are into AI, you remember how hard it was to like generate hands, like someone holding something or someone doing something. So this was the first creative work that I remember for, I think that comic book has 18 pages, which means it took me about 17 days because I was making one page a day. And I remember it just took me and my imagination into such state of flow that I just wanted other people to experience. I think before that, the only time I experienced similar feeling of the flow was when I got my first computer. I was 11 and my grandma got me a computer. She saved money for it for a very long time. And I remember she got me that computer and I learned how to use different software. And I started writing my first code and that was the same feeling. The difference was that I wasn't 11 years old anymore. I was an adult, and it's just childhood curiosity.
Kris, let's talk about that flow aspect for a moment, because a lot of people are talking about that a little more recently around vibe coding. know if you're picking up the sirens conveniently coming down the street as I'm talking. So a lot of people are talking about vibe coding as putting them in that flow state as well. And sometimes people are very focused on the output of the generative AI process, whether it's sitting down at ChatGPT and having a conversation and getting to a result, or creating a piece of art, or creating a piece of code, as is the case with vibe coding. The output is one thing, but sometimes this experiential aspect that you're referring to, I think, is maybe overlooked too. There's something to the experience of working interactively with generative AI systems that are capable of actually responding to you quickly enough in real time that you're going through this process of shaping things and seeing your idea come to life. The concept of flow that you're referring to, as I understand it, comes from a psychologist, and I'm going to probably butcher his name, but I think that it's something roughly Csikszentmihalyi. And he came up with this concept of flow, which is also used in game development, by the way. That's mostly why I'm familiar with it, is being the space between sort of things being excessively hard, where it's so hard you're kind of stopped in your tracks, but not kind of so simple that it becomes boring and you get uninterested. So flow is the state between those two things where you can get super engaged.
You know, it's great that you mentioned the game aspect of it. So for me, the way I understand flow is that when you are in pain, in physical pain, maybe you had your tooth pulled. I actually had my dental surgery at the same time when I was doing Zara of the Dawn. So I just wanted something to get away from that nagging feeling of like sobbing pain. And I was looking for something, and there were not that many things that I could do at the time. By the way, hi Arif, it's so good to see you. Hi Aaron. Oh, all my friends are here now. Now I feel so good. You shall all be on camera, guys. I hope you will join us.
Yeah, so, come on in. Oscar will get you the link. Just say the word, Oscar, wherever you are, LinkedIn, X.
Anyway,
we're monitoring all the
my house. You can join me here. Anyway, so yeah, and the thing is, it's like when you are in pain, and many people shared with me actually that when they have like a minor surgery or they're recovering from illness, they sometimes play video games actually. I find that modern games are actually quite complicated to play. You need to like figure out the gameplay, and then you can enjoy that feeling of flow. That's why I like very old games, because it's so easy. They're so simple to play, and then you're in that sense of flow. So it was similar feeling because I already had a story. I didn't have to make it up. There was no ChatGPT back then, so no one could write a story for me. All I had was like my story, my old images, and a lot of motivation and a lot of free time because I was at home recovering, like, couldn't do much. And then this magic happened. And at first it was so exclusive. I remember there was this, yes, please, Aaron, jump in. Yeah, I remember like I was making it, and it just felt like I could do this forever. I could never stop. And I wanted to create more, and I wanted to share more. It's also this feeling that you want to share everything. You don't feel possessive or like, I want to hide all my skills and be the best at it. No gatekeeping, nothing. And we had such a wonderful community on Facebook at the time. It was a small group. I joined that group, and everyone was sharing images and like writing nice things and sharing prompts. So it started really, really well. And I think it's still going. It's been 2 years, and the community is amazing.
So we've got Aaron Wolf saying you'll be on camera from LinkedIn, and sorry if I get your name a little bit wrong, Arif Hussein on X. Love to have you both on. Jump in.
Yeah.
Message with the stream link.
Do me a favor, and guys, message me, because at least Aaron, I can't directly message you to send you the link, but you'll find me there, Oscar. I'm going to message directly on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Yeah. So, Kris, while we're waiting for a couple of folks to join us here, and I think this will be awesome. You're the most popular guest so far in terms of attracting people who want to jump into the live conversation. So you've got a nice little fan community going around you. Let's talk a little bit first about how has the technology changed over the last 3 years since the time you did Zari of the Dawn. And then also, I do want to come back to the copyright piece too, because there was sort of a lot of fame around that. And as I understand it, some of the rules have actually evolved out of your experience working with the copyright. So we'll kind of put a pin in the copyright for the moment. Let's talk about the technology and the tools first. What's new in 3 years?
So first of all, I don't know, like I know that a lot of people started quite recently, and then there are also people who started at the same time as I did. And of course, people who started at the same time I did, they know the reference, they 6 fingers and all of that stuff, and that you had to be a prompt engineer to write anything and make it work, and you would spend hours to get anything decent, really. Also, there was a very big limitation in tools and access to those tools. Like right now, we have so many tools. The choice is absolutely insane, and they keep coming every single day. We have 2 or 3 models released. We get that was the time when there was no ChatGPT. The ChatGPT moment has not happened. And imagine, like, every day something would happen and people would find new ways to use it, because I think limitation always kind of breed creativity, because you want to make something but you have so little. Now I feel like you are only limited by your imagination. And when people say that the tools aren't there yet, I think they are getting there, and if someone is skillful, they can get pretty incredible results with it. I am friends with few people who are like filmmakers, like professional filmmakers, and of course they have a team of 50 people. It's not like they are making all this stuff by themselves. Like I make my own stuff by myself.
What would you like to show us, Kris? Let's take a look at some things.
Do you want me to show my stuff or some stuff of other people?
Anything you'd love, anything that you think everybody would
Take
love
the
to.
wheel and drive. You got the share.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. I put together like some stuff. Okay, so I feel like probably one of the works I'm most proud of, the video aspect of it. I was waiting like this entire time. I actually made the video this year. It's quite recent. But the photographs I was taking for 5 years, and all of those photographs are of me. I like dressing up, I like building prompts, I like having my camera on the tripod. It's just time I spend by myself. Sometimes my friends join me, sometimes they help me take those shots. But those are just photos. Also, I haven't really used a lot of Photoshop. They're mostly as they are. And then I animated them with Adobe Firefly video model. That also I felt special because it was something I worked on with the team. And I was just like so proud that I waited for so long that I could use my photos with a model that I participated in creating. So I'm going to play, it's I think about 30 seconds long. It has music in it, so just relax and enjoy. So yeah, this was fun to make. And
the tool you were using, I guess, was Adobe Firefly, because that's what showed up in the end there.
yes, I did. The thing is, like, I had those bunch of photos and I have a lot of photographs. I was doing something called 365 project, which is like when you take a picture a day. So now I have like years of those photos, so now I can animate. But we'll talk about it later because I see Arif here. Hello. It's so good to see you. How are you doing?
Welcome to the program, Arif.
Hello.
Feel free to speak up at any moment. And I think I saw...
We had Aaron, but he dropped off, so I'm just going to go see if I can find him.
Well, hopefully we'll have Aaron back any moment here.
And can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
Arif, welcome to the program. What questions or comments do you have for Kris?
Hi, Kris. I hope you are doing great. My question is, now we are stepping into the AI, and the question I am seeing nowadays that it is not an art, it is a kind of a theft. So how do we, as an AI generation specialist, handle this type of stuff? To mention that this is not a kind of a theft act, but it's a process of continuation from the ideas that has been in the past to modify it something like look better than the original.
Right. I like that. I like what you said, that it is ideas from the past that we can kind of bring them to life. Am I correct? Did I hear you right? Yeah.
Yes, you hear me right.
Do you have a question or just a thought?
My question is, how do we handle this type of stuff? Like I am sharing something, Firefly exploration on Insta or a Twitter handle. Some unknown person just jump in and start questioning the authenticity.
Right.
Arif, is the question kind of people are questioning the authenticity of things made with generative AI because it sort of taps into all of this existing structure of
To
content?
add more things that when they ask about authenticity, they are also mentioning that model, the large language model that this app is built on, are surfacing data from the online libraries or the online publications, and they, without legitimizing those things that they have sourced those information or information taken from, and when it is being built, people are jump in and then start typing some medieval artifacts and then prompt it on the
Right.
model and then start
I
generating.
the question, Arif. I mean, so a common objection to generative AI. I mean, there's sort of the legal objection around copyright, which we do want to talk a little bit about copyright and sort of Kris's personal journey through that. But also, you're raising not so much the legal question, but just one of authenticity, as you put it, which is, and it's sort of the question of when you create art, how much of it has to be sort of uniquely inspired versus how much taps into the cultural subconscious, or in the case of generative AI, just the pattern matching that occurs by searching over all of this content that exists on the internet already. Kris, I'm sure you've thought about this question.
I think about this question all the time. When I started using AI, I remember that when I was making that comic book Zarya of the Dawn, there is one part that I wanted to honor my grandma. and I wanted a character to look like my grandma. And I remember I would use photographs of my grandma that I took of her before she passed away as a reference image. And the generations didn't look like anything like her 3 years ago. Right now, I can put her photos in video model and they actually make her move. They can make you blink your eye and it looks very realistic. It looks like that could be her. So if I was making that comic book now, I could make it look like her. There is no one else who looks like her. I look like her, but I'm way much younger. I'll have to wait another 50 years to take photos of me and be part of that comic book. But now I can actually use her as a character, like I was meant to at the beginning. So I think that is an interesting question because some people, artists like me who use AI, they sometimes feel they need something extra. They need their own drawing, or they need their own photograph, or they need their own design. And then they can use AI tools to maybe make it move or make something else. While there are some artists I know, and they're very successful, amazing people who only use text to image, and then their art is sold at very famous places like Sotheby's, and it seems like the person who gets it, they don't care as much how it was done as long as they connect with the artist. I think the artist is still very important because I'm pretty sure if I just put that picture on X without any reference, everyone would look and be just like, oh, that's just some image. But when it is the artist and when there is a story behind it and the artist done it with intention, then it can be very different. And I think the meaning of what it is to create art and what it is, how to create art, it can be so different. There are things like they shake the world and then you ask, oh, it's just a banana taped on the wall. Why is this art? Why is this better than text to image? But then there is context. Art always has some sort of context. And I think right now with AI, because it's so new and the technology is new, we are defining actually what is authentic. I know so many people on X, when I see their generations, I know it's them. I don't see their name. I can just see an image and I know that they are. I know that's no one else because they establish their own style. So I feel like authenticity in a way that is it your voice, is it your style, is it recognizable is one thing. Another thing is being able to say, how was it made? What model did you use? Your name on it. There are actually tools like content credential tools that you can search your image. It actually happened to me once. I posted an image and it was so good and I was so happy because it was a long time ago and good images were very rare. So I was so proud. And then someone just took it, reposted without credit, went viral with it. And the only way for me to prove that was mine was to go to Content Authenticity site and show that I made it. Fortunately, the person who did that didn't do it on purpose at all. He just, honestly, he saw it in the thread. He didn't see my name. We became great friends, actually probably watching this right now. So sometimes, mistakes happen. Social media is so fast. So just having a place where you can kind of see, I know that LinkedIn now uses the content credentials as well. You can click and you can see who made it, how it was made. So I think we are getting into some sort of direction where I still think it shall be optional thing because it's like, do you want to show? I would definitely always want to show how my art was made. But yeah, that's probably. Hopefully I asked your question. I know that Arif is actually amazing. His generations get so many likes on Adobe Firefly Gallery. It's crazy. Like there is a gallery where people can submit their work, and then it's like a social network. People can remix those, and then they press like. And recently, I only discovered that people actually press likes on those. I didn't see that, and I saw a Reef's library, and it's like cool. Has like hundreds of likes and remixes and stuff. So thank you so much for putting so much of you into that.
I wrote an article kind of that is related to this question a few years ago, and I'll just state first that I think this word we use, creativity, actually is a very poorly defined term anyway. I think of creativity as actually the search for some kind of solution, and people that we call creative are very good at navigating highly optimized paths into the universe of solutions. You could kind of think of the universe as like this hyperparameter space where anything is possible, but you can't just sort of brute force your way to a solution like an old chess game from 40 or 50 years ago. You have to actually have good pathways towards solutions so that you can win and find interesting things. So in this article, I don't talk about art as much in this, even though I wrote another article called The Work of Art in the Age of Generative AI, which touches on that subject a little bit more. But the interesting thing here is this article. It's actually this research done by someone who has figured out how to discover physical laws, not by brute forcing your way through all of the possible physical laws, but by finding optimized pathways. And you can look at data sets and get to actually pretty interesting physical law definitions, such as relativity, for example, can be unearthed through this process. And the point of this is that when we think about creativity, we often want to glamorize it or think of it as some kind of form of enlightenment, as if only humans can do it. But I'm actually very interested in this idea that humans and a machine working together can unearth really interesting patterns and solutions and approaches to art, and the ability to apply known forms to new problems, which generative AI happens to be particularly good at. So I don't think it's as simple as just saying, oh, well, there's all this content online that it mines, and therefore you're just rehashing it. Particularly with these models, as they've gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, we have found that there are some really interesting emergent properties to this content, especially by having the human in the loop being part of that prompting process, because that actually makes it far more emergent, because you're bringing in your own social experience, your own life experience to the set of content that you end up creating from it. So I don't know. I don't find it inauthentic. Other than I think there are some interesting cases that we could talk around, like the copyright aspect. Kris, let's maybe branch
into something. Jon?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Jon. Now, I have no problem with generating AI images, but the problem is nowadays I am seeing some models that has the ability to do uncensored arts, like something the same model you can use for like Firefly. It will block you right away when the model senses that this is a prompting for something non-consensual type of task, like generating images. Firefly detects it and block you right away. But now I am seeing that some sort of AI models have the luxury of uncensorship. So if you prompt something like that, it will automatically generate it. But they also mentioned that this is not safe for work. But my question is, why you give the luxury of uncensorship and then you are label those images like not safe for work? Why is that?
Arif, is the question about why some models are more restrictive than
the other models. I think it's also it also has to do what are the use cases of the models, because the use cases, like I teach kids a lot. Trust me, I need all the guardrails I can probably get, because it's kids. I have to make sure that whatever the model generates is safe. And also I have to say, my youngest student was 2 years old. His father and mother asked me to do it, and I didn't believe. I was like, but he's two, he probably is, like, how are we going to do it? He's too small. But the thing is that he was really smart, and we made the comic book together. We made the comic book with his parents and with him. So for me to be able to generate images that not only are safe from the point of view of us adults, but also his too. So they have to be not very scary images. And, kids get scared by that. So for me, something like this, I can understand it from a perspective. As soon as you start teaching kids, teaching younger people, you can see why guardrails is a good idea, because sometimes it's like, AI still hallucinates. You don't want it to generate something either too scary or inappropriate. This is one use case. Then also businesses. If it's a meeting and someone makes an image, you want it to be professional. You want it to be not a trouble. So some companies are very careful because they want to make sure that the customers are happy, that kids are happy, especially if it's used for education. And then, of course, there will always be open source models and people make stuff and something without guardrails. And I think those things also great they exist, and also great that we know that they exist, because of course artists they may want to generate a sculpture. If you go to Metropolitan Museum, of course you can generate all kinds of sculptures, all kinds of art. It's not as restrictive, but then that's where you're getting. You probably need to be very careful not to have kids around your screen, and use it with understanding that model can generate whatever, and stuff like this. Yeah, I'm super interested how it's going to evolve, because right now in terms of the law, it's still evolving. The guidelines are constantly evolving, and there is something that we already have in the US, and in other countries it is different. I know that you mentioned that you come from Bangladesh, so probably the law situation is quite different, and it's good to look into copyright law in your own country to see what the guidelines are there as well. Yeah.
I will say that the genie is also out of the bottle, because the thing that's interesting about art that's actually different than a lot of language models, or at least the very advanced frontier models, is that you can generate pretty great art off of a model that's capable of just running locally on your machine. So there's not really going to be any top-down organization or 2 or 3 vendors that decide what is appropriate or not to do with a generative AI model with art. Language models, that's becoming increasingly true as well. Like the language models you can run on a local device now are really, really compelling. I mean, as good as what we consider ChatGPT to have been when it first launched.
Yeah.
You can't run a frontier model on your machine, but they're really compelling. So we're in a world where open source models and open weight models, they're going to be developed. They're going to be on your device. Obviously, that, in my mind, puts more of the responsibility on the user of those technologies than it does on the technology. I don't think we should be in a world where either we blame a big tech company for not having the right protections in place every time we misuse their technology, or want to hire them as the policeman to decide what we get to create. Like, we should have the agency as creators, as coders, whatever you use these technologies, to be able to do whatever you want with it, but then you have to decide if that's something you want to ship, that's something you want to be proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to be quite honest, the difference between now and the past is that in the past you could draw whatever image you want with pencil in your notebook. No one could censor you, but then it could be something wonderful and great, or it could be something inappropriate. While now the difference is that it's extremely fast and easy to do it, and on scale, and also like you don't have to like you know what I mean. You can just find a way to do it. But I think in the past people also could find a way to do it. It just now it becomes the way that we need to educate people, especially parents, what can happen and how to, you know, to at least to know what is going on. And as for models, I want to mention something. I was recently teaching a workshop at Fashion Institute of Technology here in New York, and they invited me because of my work at Adobe. And it was so fascinating. All of them were adult students. And then they told me that actually they make their own models from scratch. They put their own art and they make gowns. Of course, the art it makes, it's not realistic. It's not as realistic as it is now, but because they are artists, they actually make all kinds of abstract art with it. And I was so fascinated because it's not just a model, just fine-tuned model. It's a model. Some of them actually figured out how to make, definitely not diffusion. They don't have so much like GPU and stuff, but still it could draw like very primitive stuff, and they were so proud of it. So I think the thing is that people will make models, people will fine-tune models, they will find ways, but there is also a question of application. What do you need it for? Like a GAN model? Yeah, I can train it on my art, and I can have some very interesting, abstract, interesting art. But then if I want to visualize product, that probably, or a comic book, that probably is not going to work, because unless it's a very creative, specific comic book. So I'm happy that there are so many models, and where I work now, I actually advocated for having as many models as it's possible, because we need to make sure that creatives have tools. You have a choice. You don't have to use AI at all. You can draw everything, you can take photos, but you also have a vast toolkit of so many tools, and then your creativity, it just exponentially grows how you can mix it up. I think what creatives do is just we mix up things that we have in front of us, and now we just have more things, more possibilities to mix, more possibilities to collaborate with machine, like you said, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing time for creativity, I think.
Kris, this does kind of touch on the copyright issue too, because this goes along with people's like legal objections.
Yeah, same question for me also. That this also raises a question of copyright issue, because
if we hear you. So Kris, like, can you take us through like you were the pioneer for copyright with Zarya of the Dawn. Can you just talk a little to what happened then? I think a lot of people might be familiar with it, but what's happened since then, and like how has this changed for you over time?
Okay, so I'll open my slides just in case someone doesn't know. I think it was 2022. It was 2022 August when I finished Zarya of the Dawn. And then the thing is, I was sharing it. I was sharing my comic book online, my process, everything. And I remember people were constantly in discussion. Can this be copyrighted? For me personally, I never planned to sell it. That wasn't the goal of this. But I was just so curious, what other copyright situation in the US. So I submitted just a copyright. There is a website. The Copyright Office has a website. You can submit any of your works. It doesn't have to be AI. It can be any work. It can be a drawing. It can be writing, anything. And then I received copyright within a couple of days. And honestly, my first reaction was, oh, that's great. They already know what it is. I wasn't hiding the fact. It's actually on the front page. I did make this with Midjourney at the time, and I thought everyone knew what Midjourney is. So for me, honestly, there was absolutely no doubt that they knew what it is and it was copyrighted. Again, there was no ChatGPT back then. The story was written by me. I did use a bit of retouching with Photoshop. Again, Photoshop didn't have generative fill back then, so it was all by hand. The retouching was by hand. And then those a few more pages, like especially this second page, there was a lot of work because back then it just wasn't very good at generating like close-ups and features, and I really wanted to make it as good as I possibly could. So I got that copyright, and at first I had absolutely no doubt. And then I think a lot of press wrote about it, that the AI-assisted comic book got copyright. And a month later, I got a message from, not a message, an email from the Copyright Office saying that they would like to ask me to write a very detailed letter how this work was done. And they will decide if I keep the copyright or if they somehow change it. So then it took a long time. I was already employed. I was employed with a startup. I was working in industry already. I was super busy. So the whole community was actually helping me out with like collecting all the images, making the document, and submitting it to the Copyright Office. So after we submitted the document, by the way, all of this you can find online, everything we submitted. They said that they will give me a different copyright. They will give me a limited copyright. My story is copyrighted and the arrangement of images is copyrighted, while every image by itself is not. What does that mean? It means that, for example, if someone prints this exact page, they can't sell it because that is copyrighted. But if, say, they change two images, just change the order and print it, then that's it. They can sell it, they can do whatever they like because the images themselves aren't copyrighted. It's only the arrangement and the story. To be very honest with you, at that point, I only wanted to get clarity, what is copyrightable and what is not. So for me, I understood that text to image is not enough, even though some of those images had some editing, but it wasn't a lot of editing. It was maybe just adjusting few pixels with like clone tool, not a lot. So then I got curious, what happens if I make a drawing? I made this drawing by hand, and then at the time you could use, like, it was quite hard, you could use LoRa to get a similar looking AI image. So I submitted the second work to see how much human interaction do you need for that to be copyrighted. And it took 2 years to respond, and they did use my work in the Copyright Office guidelines. So this is the Copyright Office guidelines. It was published, I think, 2 months ago, part 2, copyrightability, and they looking into my work, and they say that the drawing is copyrightable, and like the output is copyrightable without any non-human expression. And then they write that the work can be now registered, but you need to show that you put a lot of human creativity into it to be copyrightable.
So
So
not enough just to prompt things into existence.
yes,
Prompted content could be a kind of copyright.
yeah,
Well,
but
You have to actually provide some original.
If I can ask a weird question, like, so if I crafted a prompt and I wrote the prompt, and the prompt is my expression of wanting to invoke something to existence, and I generated an image with the prompt, and the image and the prompt were paired, would that qualify in your opinion as being like, or is that still too?
This is a great question, because what the Copyright Office said for now is that every single case, they will look case by case. So I encourage you, you can test it out. It doesn't take a lot of time. You do it online. You put together that thing and you submit it, and they will respond it to you. But what I know so far is, after this copyright guidelines part 2, there are a few people who already posted that their works were copyrighted. There is one, I think, called something about cheese, and someone wrote that that's the first copyright. And I mean, it's the first copyright after these guidelines. It was very interesting what was copyrighted. And then I know a few more people who copyrighted, like there is a friend of mine, she's an artist, she draws flowers, and she used a reference image from AI, but then she drew it exactly the same. So it's like, if you would put them side by side, it's a very realistic drawing. It's exactly like, it looks the same. That is copyrightable as well. Like if their pixels are basically drawn, and then those cases will keep collecting. So to answer your question, until there is someone who actually does that, we will not know. That's exactly what I was doing. I was doing it before I got employed, because now I'm employed. I just don't really have as much time to do that. But I am very glad that they have some guidelines right now. It's still an ongoing process, and it still will keep evolving as more people try to copyright their works and they show like human input. So, I mean, it will be great if people actually try to copyright something and see what is copyrightable, what is not. Like for me, that was all about that. It was just about getting clarity. It's such a new thing, and I'm a researcher. I'm very curious what is going to happen. Again, I'm not a lawyer myself, so for me, it's just
none of us are lawyers. We should
none
say.
of us are lawyers.
What
Yes,
we're telling you here is legal.
This is not legal advice.
absolutely no legal advice here. The only advice I can give: create stuff.
But what we can observe, though, is like we've got, before generative AI, which is very, very new still, we had more than a couple hundred years worth of case law of all kinds of copyright issues and what's considered truly copyrightable versus what isn't. And we're at the very dawn of figuring out the rules around this. I think maybe what we could conclude from your own experience, Kris, is just text prompting something to existence, that's not enough. But that plus some
in the US,
inputs.
In China, it is enough. There are different laws. I was very curious about reading different laws in different countries, and apparently there are countries where it is enough. Also in Japan, depending on how many iterations you make, but again, they will always look case by case. It's such an important part of it, that case by case thing, that what worked for me may be very different if your use case is slightly different. So what I know though is that guideline said if you have enough human input and you can show it, that thing can be copyrighted.
Well, we're getting towards the top of our hour, so we have this last question from Ryan. But Ryan, I think you're asking almost a legal question. I wish we could answer that. I think Kris has the right idea, which is not a lot of cases have been tested yet. There's really no harm that I'm aware of. Again, not a lawyer, so I can't actually say that 100%. But I don't think there's any harm in creating something and then attempting to copyright it and see what the Copyright Office has to say about that. And as more and more of these things happen, the rules will fall into place. As Kris mentions, the rules are also going to vary from country to country. Like China has a different set of rules. I don't know if I think of China the best exemplar of intellectual property stewardship in the world, but they have a different approach to it where they seem to be willing to grant much more copyrightability to things that are just generated out. Balancing all of the stakeholders in this process is a really, really hard problem. And it isn't a problem as simple as, oh, we found all the patterns that represent these kinds of structures that are recurring in art anyway that artists would learn in school, and just because computers learned it as well, you can't use it because it was sourced off the internet. Like, I don't think it's as simple as that. It's a much more complicated, much more nuanced problem than that. We'll probably have to bring a lawyer on, actually. I think.
Yeah, that's a good idea. If you invite actual AI copyright lawyer, that would be a very interesting conversation. I just want to mention a few things before we say goodbye, because I prepared, I wanted to show you some creative examples of AI. So I'm going to just do it real quick.
Okay. Maybe 1 more minute. So.
All right. Okay. Let me share with you the rest of my presentation. So first of all, what you can do is you can make tiny video games with AI. You can create all of your assets with AI, and you can use any chatbot you want, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever you like, Grok, and just like I used Adobe Firefly to make assets for it, like graphic assets. You can use all the AI tools you have, or you can even use your own designs, drawings, whatever it is, to make it like for yourself or for your kid. This is like a cool creative coding exercise because you can make simple games, but now you can also make a bit more challenging games. Then you can make scripts for After Effects. You can make scripts for Illustrator like this. You can make 3D. You can make 3D text and turn it through AI to make it look really cool. There is a renaissance in typography right now because you can do so much with AI. Like this one, I just used Illustrator and made some text, turned it into like AI. Also, there are lots of use cases with 3D and AI. You can like this, that you like make a transformer. You can draw it, and you can make a 3D design of it. So there are lots of use cases. I already showed you how I animate my photography, visualize stuff. So I hope you'll just give it a try and share what you are making with AI, because every day people come up with the cool creative use cases. I love seeing them online. So yeah, hopefully.
I think that's the takeaway from this program. If you're an artist and you haven't used these tools yet in the last 3 years, whatever your misgivings are, you still have to try these tools and understand what they can accomplish. And if you are not an artist, you should try these things just to see how it could augment your own creativity and what you could do with it. So do not ignore this. The world is changing. It's not going to be the same. So learn about these technologies and try to apply them to your work, however it is. And definitely go with Kris's idea. We've got 655 people watching live right now. If one of you is an intellectual property lawyer, come on the program. We'll talk about the legal issues. Actually, I'd love to get a couple of you taking on maybe opposite sides of some of these aspects of things. That would be a really, really fun conversation. So reach out, we'll make that happen. Kris, I want to thank you so much for taking the time with me today. This has been amazing, and I want to thank the audience for taking part in this. Your time's valuable, and thanks, Arif, for joining the program live.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.